first part is, as I mentioned, we have to wait until, so let's talk about 2010. We're currently involved in the 2010 surveillance year. We've got 11 sites plus CDC that are funded to do the 2010 surveillance year. We started collecting data. The sites were funded in the middle of 2010. As you know, they were still finishing up the 2008 surveillance year at that point. We started collecting data a little bit towards the end of 2010, just to get a glimpse into some of the electronic medical records and some of the places where we could then go back to after 2010 was over, and then go back and see all the records that these children had from 2002 when they were born up through the end of 2010, the year that they turned 8 years old or 4 years old for some of the sites. We review just tens of thousands of records. Just in metropolitan Atlanta alone, we review about 8,000 to 10,000 records of children. Of those records, we're looking for these behavioral descriptions that are consistent with autism. In some of those records, we find those descriptions. Once we find that description, we abstract every evaluation that that child has on record. It can be anywhere from one evaluation to some children have 20 or 30 evaluations over that time period. We collect all of this information. It really takes about a good year and a half for the abstractors in the field to go through all of these records, collect all the data. As they're finishing up that process, these records then start going through the clinician review process. The clinician review process, it takes anywhere from a half hour to some of these records take 5 or 6 hours for a clinician to actually sit down and review and code out and see, even if the child has an autism diagnosis, to code out every behavior and collect all the data that we have. All that data has to be entered. It has to go through a pretty extensive cleaning process. It takes about 2.5 years to complete data collection and to finish everything. For the 2008 surveillance year, as I mentioned, we started kind of towards the end of 2008, but really not full swing into 2009. By the time all of the data from all these 14 sites came to CDC, it was June of 2011. We had some sites finishing up a little bit earlier than that, but it was really June of 2011. So it was literally from the beginning of 2009 to the middle of 2011 when they were collecting the data. And then in June of 2009, we had a manuscript ready in about a month. We have an extensive CDC review process because this paper does not go through peer review like it would at a different journal. If we were submitting to some of the top tier journals, it might take 2 years from the time we submit. And it would still have to go through all the CDC peer review process before that. So we decided a long time ago that MMW was, in fact, the most efficient, quickest way to get these numbers out. But literally, it takes about 9 months from the time we get the data packaged, analyzed into a manuscript for it to go through the multiple levels of peer review within our group and through CDC and then with the MMWR office.
And I'm sure many of you are familiar with that process. So if we weren't publishing this in the MMWR, we send it to, let's say, The Lancet or JAMA or whatever, we could send it to them, they could send it back to us, we could, make our revisions, they could reject it. I mean, that's the process, but we think it's extremely important to have peer review. So whether we could speed this up, I doubt it. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. We're as efficient as we can be, I believe, at this time. But remember, we're talking about 8-year-olds.
And one of the things we're really excited about is we have a new abstraction system, a new data collection system that we've been working on for about a year and a half, and we'll begin using that this summer for the 2012 surveillance year. We'll begin training people to use that, and we think that some of the efficiencies in just even the technology that's caught up, we'll be able to make some improvements. Whether we can shave 6
6
months off
months.
of it, I don't know. Probably more like a month to 3 months is my best guess. But, you know, we expect that we'll have data for 2010 packaged, ready to go hopefully by the middle of next year. Meaning that our next prevalence report would come out about 2 years after this one that
Right.
just came out in March.
That's our goal.
And that's
I think we only have time for one more question. I don't know who's in charge, but, I mean, we're here. Do we have to leave it like 2, or can we continue? I don't know the answer to
I
that.
think probably one more question.
One more question, okay, thank you. One more question from someone who hasn't asked a question. You haven't asked.
This is a quick one too.
All right,
I've seen 1.5 million and I've seen 2 million as the number of people living with autism today in America. That's a big discrepancy. Is there a number that the CDC provides?
why don't you talk about how we've come up with,
Yeah,
from our
I mean, we
view.
have a very crude estimate, and it's only because we get asked this question a lot. But if we apply the 1 in 88 number to all children under 21, up to age 21, living in this country, we apply this 1 in 88 number, as well as the number from the most recent national prevalence, the national survey that we got a prevalence estimate of 1 in 91. If we apply that number to all the children in the United States, we get just over 1 million up to age 21. But as Andy mentioned, there are a number of people over 21 living with autism in the United States. Whether or not the prevalence is the same in that population and it's gone undetected, or whether or not children in these lower age groups actually have a higher prevalence in the population, we're not sure. So that might be where some of that discrepancy comes from, but I guess if you think about how many people are between 21 years old and up
Right.
in the country, if you apply our estimate to that, you would actually come out a lot higher than 2 million. So, you know, but the question remains, has the prevalence been the same all along, or is this just something that we can somewhat generalize to children? And as we've seen over time, can we even generalize this to all children up to 21? From the national surveys, we feel confident that we can, but it is likely very much higher than the number you cited.
I think we're out of time, and we want to thank you again for your